She didn't lose attraction for you overnight. That's the lie you've been telling yourself for months, maybe years. It didn't happen in one bad argument, one missed birthday, one night you came home too tired to talk. It happened in 1,000 small moments you didn't even notice. Moments where she needed you to lead, and you asked what she wanted instead. Moments where she needed you to hold your ground, and you folded to keep the peace. Here's the part that's going to sting. Most men over 35 aren't unattractive because of their age, their hairline, or their bank account. They're unattractive because somewhere along the way they traded their presence for approval. So the real question isn't, how do I get her back? The real question is, did you ever actually have what you think you lost? This is for the man who's done chasing and is finally ready to understand. Maybe you're 42 and recently divorced, staring at a phone that used to light up with her name and now sits silent. Maybe you're 36, still in the relationship, but you can feel her pulling away in ways she can't even explain to herself. Maybe you're 50 and re-entering the dating world for the first time in 20 years, terrified that you've missed some rulebook everyone else got a copy of. Wherever you are, here's what I want you to hear first. You are not broken, and you are not too old. What you are is misinformed. You were taught by movies, by well-meaning parents, by a culture obsessed with being nice, that attraction is built through effort, through giving, through proving your worth, and that belief has quietly sabotaged you for decades. Attraction was never about effort. It was never about how much you give, how often you compliment her, or how badly you want her to stay. Attraction is built and destroyed by something far more primal, something that operates below conscious thought, in the part of the female brain that evolved over millions of years to detect strength, stability, and leadership in a partner. And here's the truth. Most men your age never learn until it's too late. Women don't fall out of attraction because a man does too little. They fall out of attraction because a man, without realizing it, starts performing for her instead of standing beside her. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what triggers that shift. The invisible moment where a woman goes from seeing you as a man she respects to a man she manages. You'll understand why the nice guy approach that worked in your 20s actively repels a mature woman in her 30s, 40s, and beyond. And you'll walk away with a framework, not tricks, not manipulation, but a genuine shift in how you carry yourself that rebuilds the kind of attraction that doesn't need chasing to survive. Here's something to sit with for a moment. Attraction and love are not the same currency. You can be deeply loved by a woman who has stopped being attracted to you, and that combination is more painful than any breakup because everything looks fine from the outside while something essential has already died on the inside. That's the trap so many older men fall into, mistaking her loyalty for her desire, mistaking her comfort for her fire. There's a second thing I want to plant in your mind before we go further. Every woman, no matter how independent, no matter how successful in her own career or life, is unconsciously scanning the men around her for one thing. Can this man hold his center when things get difficult? Not perform under pressure? Hold his center? That single trait explains more about attraction, respect, and long-term desire than every gift, every vacation, every grand gesture combined. So let's stop guessing about what happened and start understanding the actual psychology. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here's what most men believe. She left because I wasn't good enough. I didn't make enough money. I wasn't romantic enough. I let myself go physically. Someone better came along. This belief feels true because it's simple, and simple pain is easier to carry than complicated pain. But it's almost never the real story. The real story lives in attachment theory, and it explains something most men have never been told. Women, especially women who grew up learning to be independent and self-sufficient, which is most women today, develop what psychologists call an anxious avoidant push-pull dynamic in relationships where they sense the man has become the more invested party. The moment a woman senses she has become the emotional anchor of the relationship, the one managing his moods, reassuring his insecurities, initiating the difficult conversations, something shuts off in her nervous system. Not out of cruelty, out of biology. Her brain reads overinvestment from you as a resource and safety signal going in the wrong direction. Historically, and still today at an unconscious level, women are wired to be drawn towards stability, not neediness. Let me give you a real scenario because this is where it gets uncomfortable. A man, call him David, 44 years old, married 11 years, starts to feel his wife pulling away. His instinct, like almost every man's instinct, is to lean in harder. He plans more date nights. He asks, "Are we okay?" more often. He apologizes preemptively for things he hasn't even done wrong yet, just to avoid conflict. 6 months later, she asks for a separation. David is devastated, confused, certain he did everything right. Here's what he doesn't see. Every one of those loving behaviors was actually a withdrawal from his own identity account. He stopped being David who has a life and became David who is managing a marriage. And a woman cannot stay attracted to a man whose entire emotional world revolves around her approval. This is where cognitive dissonance enters the picture, and it's brutal. A woman in this position often still loves the man. Her mind holds two conflicting truths at once. He is a good person who I care about, and I feel no pull toward him anymore. That dissonance is agonizing, so her mind resolves it the only way it can, by manufacturing reasons. Suddenly, she's telling her friends he's too passive, or we grew apart, or I need space to find myself. These explanations feel true to her because the alternative, admitting attraction simply evaporated, is too disorienting to sit with. Ego protection plays a role too on both sides. She protects her ego by framing the story in a way that doesn't make her look shallow for losing attraction to overgiving. And you, yes, you have likely been protecting your ego by telling yourself a version of events where you're the victim of bad luck or a woman who changed, rather than facing the more useful, if painful, truth. Something in your posture, your presence, your self-respect shifted without your permission. So here's the micro cliffhanger worth sitting with. If attraction isn't about effort, and it isn't about looks or money past a baseline, and it isn't even really about love, what actually rebuilds it? The answer isn't complicated, but it is uncomfortable because it requires you to stop performing and start becoming. That's exactly what we're covering next. Step 1. Rebuild your center of gravity. The action is simple to state and hard to live. Your life, your goals, your standards, and your sense of self must exist independently of her opinion of you. Not in a cold, detached way, in a grounded way where you have a life so full and self-directed that her presence enhances it rather than defines it. The psychology behind this is straightforward. Human beings, and women in particular, when evaluating long-term partners, are drawn toward what researchers call high-value stability. A person whose emotional state doesn't fluctuate based on external validation. When your mood, your confidence, your sense of worth stops rising and falling with her texts, her tone, her affection, you become someone she has to actually choose again every day rather than someone she has already fully absorbed and stopped noticing. The common mistake here is faking it, performing detachment while secretly checking her Instagram story views every 10 minutes. Women read incongruence instantly. If your center of gravity is fake, she will feel the difference between genuine self-possession and a strategy, and the strategy will backfire harder than doing nothing at all. Step 2. Trade approval, seeking for honest positioning. Stop asking questions designed to get reassurance. Do you still love me? Are we okay? What are you thinking? These questions, however well-intentioned, put her in the position of managing your emotional state. Instead, state where you stand. I want this to work, and I'm going to keep showing up as the best version of myself, whatever you decide. That single shift moves you from a man asking for permission to a man who has already made peace with his own choices. Why does this work psychologically? Because it removes her from the role of emotional caretaker and returns her to the role of participant. Attraction requires two people standing on their own ground, reaching toward each other, not one person standing and one person leaning. The common mistake is confusing this with coldness or ultimatums. This is not take it or leave it energy. It's calm, warm, unwavering honesty. The moment it curdles into an ultimatum, you've swapped one form of control for another, and she'll sense the manipulation immediately. Step 3. Reintroduce unpredictability through genuine growth. Pick one area of your life you've let go dormant: physical health, a creative pursuit, a friendship, a professional ambition, and rebuild it not for her, but because a man engaged in his own becoming is magnetic in a way that's almost impossible to fake. This isn't about a sudden gym transformation to win her back. It's slower and deeper than that. It's about becoming someone whose Tuesday afternoon is interesting even when she's not in it. The psychology here connects directly to novelty and dopamine. Long-term partners unconsciously categorize each other as known, predictable, cataloged, no longer generating curiosity. When you genuinely grow, you reintroduce small, authentic unknowns into her perception of you, and curiosity is one of the fastest routes back to attraction. The common mistake is doing this as a performance for her benefit, checking to see if she's noticed. The moment growth becomes a show, it stops being growth and becomes another form of chasing. Step 4, hold boundaries without punishing her for testing them. When she pulls away, tests your patience, or says something sharp, your job is not to collapse into anxiety or retaliate with coldness. Your job is to remain steady, kind, but unmoved. I hear you, and I'm not going anywhere, but I'm also not going to abandon my own standards to keep the peace. This works because women, especially women who have felt like the strong one in past relationships, are unconsciously testing to see if you'll bend. Every time you hold your center without punishing her for the test, you deposit proof that you are safe to fully trust, not fragile, not vindictive, just solid. The common mistake is either caving completely, which confirms her fear that she has to manage you, or overcorrecting into distance and punishment, which confirms her fear that you're unsafe when she's honest. Steadiness, not swing, is the entire skill. Step 5, detach the outcome from your self-worth. This is the hardest step, and it's the one that makes every other step actually work, instead of becoming a manipulation tactic in disguise. You have to arrive at a place, genuinely, not performatively, where your worth as a man is not contingent on whether this specific woman chooses you. The psychology is almost paradoxical. The moment you stop needing the outcome, you become the kind of man capable of earning it. Desperation has a scent, and so does peace. People, and women especially, are drawn toward peace the way they're repelled by desperation, even when they can't articulate why. The common mistake is trying to shortcut this step, pretending to be at peace as a strategy to get her back, rather than doing the internal work required to actually arrive there. There is no shortcut. This step has to be real, or none of the others will hold. I know what's happening in your mind right now if you're in the middle of this. You want a timeline. You want to know if 2 weeks of holding your center will fix it, or if it needs to be 2 months, or if it's already too late. I want to be honest with you instead of comforting. That timeline doesn't exist, and searching for it is itself the anxious behavior that keeps you stuck. Here's the reframe I need you to actually absorb, not just hear. You are not doing this work to win her back. You read that correctly. You are doing this work to become a man who is worth choosing, by her or by whoever comes next, or most importantly by yourself when you look in the mirror at the end of the day. The outcome with her is a possible result of that transformation. It is not the point of it, and the moment you make it the point, you'll unconsciously start performing again, and she will feel it within days. Overthinking is going to try to run this show. You'll replay conversations, search for hidden meanings in a delayed text reply, wonder if a certain tone meant something. Here's what I want you to remember every time that spiral starts. Certainty is not available to you right now, and chasing certainty is a losing game that will cost you the very steadiness you're trying to build. Peace has to come before clarity, not after it. Most men wait for clarity to feel peaceful. Grounded men build peace first and let clarity arrive on its own schedule. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes with this stage, the loneliness of doing the internal work without knowing if anyone will ever witness the man you're becoming. I won't pretend that's easy, but consider this. The version of you who needed her to stay in order to feel whole was never actually free. Even during the years everything looked fine. The man who can stand steady, uncertain of the outcome, and still choose his own standards, that man has something no relationship ever gave you. He has himself back. So if you're anxious tonight, if you're checking your phone, if you're rehearsing what you'd say if she called, stop and ask yourself one question instead. Am I becoming a man I would respect regardless of what she decides? If the answer is yes, keep walking that path slowly without needing applause for it. If the answer is no, that's your actual work, and it has nothing to do with her at all. A man who needs to be chosen will always be at the mercy of someone else's decision. A man who has already chosen himself is the only kind of man who ever gets chosen back. And even if he isn't, he's still standing on solid ground either way. That's not a consolation prize. That's the entire point. If this gave you something to sit with tonight, hit subscribe so the next one finds you, and drop a comment telling me where you're at right now. I read every single one, and some of you need to hear that you're not alone in this.